What's going on, guys, and welcome to my review of episode 4 of The Last of Us, titled Please Hold My Hand. And this is another calm before the storm episode, as well as one of the episodes that has a lot of serious fan service for those of us that love the video games. So this is one that, by the time I got to it the first time that I watched it, so many things in this one just completely perked me up and got me reignited with excitement for everything that this series was going to have in store for me after it.
Whoa! Smells like burnt shit.
And this is also the first episode of the series thus far that spends a good amount of time on brand new characters. Now, obviously, Bill and Frank mostly, is a character that we didn't have that version of the storytelling in the previous episode in the video game. But this one, with Melanie Lynskey's character as well as Jeffrey Pierce, they are brand new characters created for this show. So this episode starts off with Ellie doing a bunch of poses with her pistol that she found in the previous episode at Bill's house that Joel is not aware of. And I don't know if I'm the only one, but I immediately had flashbacks to episode 2, I believe, of season 4 of Breaking Bad, called Snub. And it's where, Walter's doing the little gun poses and trying to practice drawing and everything. I don't know why, but that immediately made me think of that. I've had a few people online that have suggested that Ellie's a little too psychotic, like she's a little bit darker of a character in the show. I personally didn't pick up on that. I think that what they're translating from the game is pretty much the same personality of that little girl, it's just in a different way. Somebody's fish out of water, just now experiencing the world, just now handling guns, all these things that she's been training at this Fedra camp for, and now she's right in the thick of it. So I don't have any issue with the way that she's being portrayed, but the way that they introduce this is continuing to have this focus to where she really wanted a gun in episode 2. Joel said no. She really wanted to do it again in episode 3. He said no. She found the gun herself. And later on in the episode, we get to kind of the culmination of that whole little subplot, if you will, regarding Joel's trust of having her have a weapon. Immediately after that, the moment that it was so hard for me not to message some of my friends that I know are massive Last of Us fans like me, and tell them this specific detail to get them excited for the show when I was watching it early. And when she pulls out the No Pun Intended Volume 2 book, and Ellie starts telling the little dad jokes to Joel, that is a moment straight out of the video game that is actually kind of an optional moment. It's usually optional conversation, so she'll pull out the book and then you can walk over to her and hit triangle to continue the conversation. So many of us experienced that with the game. Some of us might have played through the game and never had that experience, but that is a very large piece of like the more childlike side to her character in the video games.
Okay, we need to lighten the mood. Ready? Doesn't matter how much you push the envelope, it'll still be stationary.
What is that?
It's a joke book. No Pun Intended, Volume 2, by Will Livingston.
Let's keep going.
What did the Confederate soldiers use to eat off of? Civilware.
To where there's even a trophy, I believe, for either having heard all of the jokes or having all the optional conversations, one or the other. But when she pulled out that joke book and started rattling off these little corny jokes to Joel, man, I can't tell you how much I smiled. Just something, again, such a small, subtle piece of fan service that if you're watching the show with no knowledge of the video games, can completely skate over it and not realize the significance of it. It's just a cute little innocent, childlike moment from her. But from fanatics, from fans, from people that are diehards of the game, that is such a crucial little element to put in there that I absolutely loved. And as if that wasn't fan service enough, that entire sequence between Joel and Ellie in the truck, where you got the Hank Williams music playing and she pulls out the gay porn magazine and they have the little back and forth of almost like a father-daughter conversation, like, hey, that's not meant for kids, avert your eyes.
Light on the reading, but it's got some interesting photos.
Now, Ellie, that ain't for kids.
Whoa! How the hell would he even walk around with that thing?
Get rid of that.
Well, hold your horses. I want to see what all the fuss is about. Oh, why are these all stuck together?
That is one of my absolute favorite cutscenes from the video game, especially where it leads to the Raiders attacking the truck, which again, they recreated very well in that whole action sequence. And I think that's a sequence that, it's not just for Flash. It's not just we're going to do it shot for shot just to show that we can do things shot for shot. I think that's important character development, important little dynamic development between those two, because that father-son relationship starts to come out a little bit, to where she's teasing him and he's fallen victim to it, and that father-like instinct of trying to keep her innocence a little bit, which we kind of come back to whenever she does actually use the gun later on. And then the whole Raider coming out, the guy pretending to be hurt, and Joel knowing better. Again, one of my favorite moments of the video game. When that first happened, the first time that I played The Last of Us back in 2013, I loved that whole sequence. What are you doing? He's hurt. No, he ain't. Just fucking hits the gas and whoosh. I was like, hell yeah, Joel, get him.
Easy.
Please!
Holy shit. Are we gonna help him?
Put your seatbelt on, Ellie.
Well, what about the guy?
He ain't even hurt.
Stop.
Please help!
Are we gonna help him?
That whole segment, from the joke book to that recreation of that cutscene, the conversation in the truck with the Hank Williams, to the people, the hunters raiding on the truck, that was just pure fan service right there. That maybe the biggest episode as far as having just a ton of fan service back to back. And immediately after you have the Raiders attacking the truck, you have Joel taking out a few of these characters, and you eventually have a situation to where Joel has told Ellie, go hide, let me take care of this, and somebody gets a drop on him, and somebody's about to kill Joel. He cannot defend himself to the point that he needs to, and Ellie comes out and shoots the guy. Now that is another thing that happens in the video game, but it's in a completely different section. It's in a completely different part of the story, where she comes up and shoots a guy that's drowning Joel in this little sinkhole puddle inside of a hotel. But it goes for the same exact effect.
I shot the hell out of that guy, huh?
To where she has finally saved him after all the numerous times, especially in the video game, where he has saved her and protected her. And in the show, I liked how they focused on his regret that it had to go down that way. And it gives a little bit of a different context to his kind of aversion to having her have a gun in the first place. Of course, it was about building trust. I'm not going to give a gun to this kid. I don't even know who the fuck this kid is. First couple episodes, he's not even really a fan of her as a person anyway. But it starts to become not only his aversion of just the trust, but also not wanting her to have to pull the trigger, not wanting her to have to descend into being the type of people that most people in this world have become, that Joel himself has become numerous times, to where it's kill or be killed every single day. And so when you get to the moment where she saves him, and of course he's grateful, but also instantly regretful. Really good, subtle stuff, not only in the acting department, but just another section of The Last of Us storytelling with these characters that I've always appreciated, the way that they build these relationships through these little moments. And there's also a line of dialogue, I don't know if you can call it foreshadowing since it's about something in the past, but foreshadowing some things that we're going to learn about Ellie later on in the show regarding how she got bit, where she tells him that this was not the first time I had to use a gun. And it's that conversation paired with, the guilt, paired with the renewed trust, the gained trust that Joel has in her, to where he finally trusts her with the gun, allows her to keep it, kind of, do you know how to use it, gives her a few quick little lines of wisdom regarding gun safety, and then we carry on with the rest of the episode. And pretty much the rest of the episode is all focused on these new characters, these hunters, these, rebellious people that is led by Melanie Lynskey's character, who I believe was Kathleen, I believe was the name of her character. Brand new to the show, like I said, and Jeffrey Pierce is the guy with the beard, the one who's kind of her second in command, and he is actually the guy that did the voice acting and I believe the motion capture as well for Uncle Tommy in the video game. So this is the first time we're also getting to see a voice actor from the actual video game show up in a starring role, and there's a few more surprises that we're going to see throughout the rest of the series. That another thing that I love that they did, because voice actors, and motion capture actors especially, are just as talented as the people that just go in front of the camera and do more traditional acting. And the fact that we got to see Jeffrey Pierce and a couple other people we'll see later on show their acting chops outside of motion capture and voice acting was really cool. And you're immediately introduced to the character of Kathleen in a very dark way, to where she seems normal enough. You know, she seems like she's obviously somebody in power, but you don't really see the dark side of her at first. She's looking for information about this guy named Henry. And she is interrogating this guy and giving hints that it has to do with the fate of her brother. So her brother has died, and Henry, she at least believes to be the guy who is most responsible. And you go from the scene where she's interrogating this guy and she's being very, I don't know, professional, I guess is the word, but she's being very straightforward about it and not overly violent. And they also explain that this guy being interrogated is a doctor. And I love the dialogue exchange that we get, to where Kathleen goes outside, there's this ruckus going on, and Jeffrey Pierce's character has shown up on the scene and shows her that there are these dead members of their community. One of them is about to die, and it's people that Joel just fucked up, and the guy that Ellie shot. And, this, what are we going to do about this? There's somebody that just killed our guys. What are we going to do, Kathleen? And she looks at him and she says, "Can a doctor help him?" And he goes, "No." And then she immediately just goes right back into the interrogation chamber, the jail cell, and shoots the fucking guy. And I just thought that was such a cool, kind of low-key way to show how cold-blooded she is, to where, he's a doctor, he's got a purpose in this community, and then the very first time where he might be right, she's like, "Oh, well, we don't need him, fuck him," and then just goes and shoots him. So she's always been an actress that I've been interested in. You see her in movies, I always think of Detroit Rock City, and then of course 2.5 Men, and I've never really seen her do something on this dramatic level before. I know she has done some dramatic work, but it was cool to see her take on a role like this because she's really good in it. And so you have this whole setup of these hunters, this group that Joel and Ellie are going to have to come blow to blow with at some point. It's this new threat where we've gotten past the infected for now, for the moment, taking a little breath, and now we're going to introduce the darker side of the human threat. Things that might even be scarier or more of a threat than the infected, the thing that has collapsed the entire world. And you also get that sprinkling of a hint of that character, Henry, who is a major character in the video game that we'll learn more about by the next episode. But all these little breadcrumbs, just the calm before the storm, setting up all the events that are going to play out in the next episode and some that will be later on in the season. And one of the most effective bits of foreshadowing for not only people watching the show, but people who have played the video game for a multitude of reasons, is when you have Kathleen and Jeffrey Pierce's character go to this little bunker or wherever they're at, this sewer area, and he shows her this brewing sinkhole that seems like almost pulsating. Like there is something going on under the ground here. And immediately she is petrified. The character that we just saw be so cold-blooded and fearless is immediately petrified, which is all we need to know that sinkhole is some serious fucking business. And the cool thing about it is that is not an element in the video game. This is not Gears of War. We don't typically have, sinkholes and emergence holes and things like that. So there's speculation that you can have as a fan of the game that knows events of the game, that knows different types of infected, that knows some of the sequences to come and some of the sequences that we have not seen yet or that we skipped over and had alternates of in episode 3. And so you have these things that we haven't seen that yet. And you see the sinkhole and you still don't know exactly what that means. You don't know exactly what is brewing under there, what is going to come out of that sinkhole, especially with the way that the show has introduced alternate elements and different elements from the games, like the tendrils as opposed to the spores. So that was a moment where I was like, what the fuck is that? And finally, the note that this episode decided to end on was another great bit of character growth, dynamic growth between Joel and Ellie, to where they have found a safe area to camp out for the night, going back to the joke book where they start to exchange jokes again, and she finally gets Joel to laugh. And it's the first time that we see his character smile or have any sort of joyful emotion since the first part of episode 1, back in, before the world went to shit. And so that whole moment right there is one of the best moments between those two characters, because you finally start to see them bond with each other. You finally start to see them understand each other and value each other. And, you know, Joel being able to appreciate her silly kid side and being able to, you know, let loose for a few moments and enjoy the fact that they're safe and everything is quiet for the moment and laugh at a stupid ass joke. And Ellie being able to appreciate the fact that she's got this adult that she trusts, that has her back and she has his back, and she can also enjoy the quieter moments with him as well. All before the needle drop of her waking up and startling and waking up Joel to find that they are both being held at gunpoint by two characters that we have yet to be introduced to. And I won't say who they are for those that are watching the show, but very important characters. For all of us video game fans, immediately seeing those two characters is like, oh man, oh man, now we're at this. Woo! Brace yourselves. So all in all, guys, look, I feel like I'm being one note. I told you guys when I reviewed this season, I loved everything about it. There was very few, if not no, negative things I had to say. And so every single week, it's just gonna be me blowing this show, because every single week, I'm telling you, there is so much to appreciate and to value and to just be excited about with the way that they adapted this material for a television series. Another great, quieter episode, you know, while still having some explosive moments, still having those standout moments like the recreation of the cutscene in the video game and the raiders raiding the truck, the introduction of the characters at the end, and a great way to introduce characters that are exclusive to this show to flesh out the villainous side of things even more than we got to experience in the game. So loved episode 4. Can't wait for everybody to see it and to talk about it, and let me know down below what your thoughts are and what are you most excited about, fearful for, intrigued about of all of the things that they have introduced and set up in this episode for the future. All right, guys, if you enjoyed this, please click over here for all of my coverage on this show so far. And I'm also going to put my review of The Last of Us Part 1 remake for PS5 up here. Please like and share this video and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything in the future, as well as subscribe to my Game Chamber channel if you are more of a fan of the gaming side of things. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.